morning, good evening, and good night, everybody. My name is Sarah, and today we're discussing my December wrap-up. Now, this is also mostly my winter magical readathon, which was a choose your own adventure readathon that you weren't aware of the prompts before you got them. So it was kind of a mixed bag this month, really. It was in terms of what I read and how I felt about the books I read. But with that all being said, let's dive in. Prompt number 1 of the Winter Magical Readathon. Grab your most recently acquired read. This could be bought, borrowed, or inherited. For me, I got Good Omens. I got this from the library. I've been waiting for this book for months. I've been on this waiting list, and I'm going to get this book, and I'm going to read the book before I watch the TV show. And I'm honestly haven't even finished the first episode of the TV show yet because the episodes are an hour long. And when I started reading this book, it was middle of finals week for me. So you know how it goes. Good Omens is a book about the angel and demon Aziraphale and Crowley as they try and stop the apocalypse. Originally, they were tasked with bringing in about both heaven and hell are reeling up for the one final battle. They bring the Antichrist to Earth, and they end up losing the Antichrist. Now, they don't realize that happens until about 10 years after the fact. The child they were raising is not the Antichrist, and it kind of just tumbles, and the angel and the demon sit down, and they're like, I really kind of like Earth, and what can we do to save it if we don't have the thing that's supposed to stop it in our control? So that's the whole plot of the book, and I just think it's really amazing, really funny. However, it has its flaws. It was really slow. It took a long time to get to its point. It's very British. And I mean, it's a British book, but it has a lot of that type of humor. So I really liked it, but at the same time, I'm like, it has some difficulties getting to its point. And I listened to it on an audiobook again. It's always my strife. I didn't really like the narrator, which I know shouldn't be a part of the book, but it was a part of my experience. If I'm just rating the book, 4.5 stars. It was great, not perfect, but I liked it. But the audiobook was kind of bringing it down for me, and it gave it a solid 4 stars. So again, I liked it. It just had some iffy things about it. My main iffy thing about it is the climax, is the ending. I did not like the payoff. I can't really discuss about why or how because spoilers, but it was great. It lacked that oomph. Prompt number 2, mundane to magical. Read a book that is urban fantasy / hidden world. I picked Trials of Apollo book 4, Tyrants 2. Now, I have very mixed opinions about this, and that's mainly what happens in the last half of the book. The first half, I have very strong opinions, and I did not like it. It was about 400 pages, not 400, it was about 300 pages of them climbing a tower. And I did not enjoy that. I mean, they did other things, but really, it took so long to get to what, was actually going on. I'm like, why am I reading this? Why is it taking so long to get to its point? And then when the final battle, they reared up to have the climax of this book, and I didn't like what some of the decisions were, especially involving the character Frank. If you read this book, you know my opinion and why I have it. I was actually talking about this book once I finished it with a bunch of other Percy Jackson cosplayers, and I got very mixed opinions. My friend Sailor, she is in love with this book. She loves Trials of Apollo. And everyone else was like, yeah, it was fine and all. It pulled its punches. And I was the only person who was like, I would give it a solid 3 stars. Not quite 2. I did enjoy it, but I wouldn't be recommending this to anyone. This is kind of an exist book. I have it, it exists, it's sit on my shelf, I've read it. That's about all I can say about this book because of so much of what I didn't like. It took so long to get to its point, and I didn't like its point. So yeah, it fit with the theming, but I didn't like how it was executed, and I didn't like the consequences or the lack thereof, and yes, I have a lot of opinions, and I cannot share them, and that bothers me. The next prompt is to read a paranormal book or a book with ghosts and spirits in it. I picked Blue Exorcist Volume 6. I've talked about this series a lot. I absolutely love Blue Exorcist. It is an amazing manga if you ever really want to get into manga. This is a series about the son of Satan deciding he wants to become an exorcist and kill Satan himself. And I just think it's cool and amazing, and there's a lot of demons and ghosts. This volume is a part of the arc that deals with one of the side characters and their family and the whole, Buddhist temple, kind of secretly guarding an ancient demon relic that they're really not supposed to have, that no one knew that they have until it got stolen. And so that's a whole arc that this one is encompassing. I think Volume 5 was the beginning of the arc. I might be wrong, it might be Volume 4. I don't know where it goes to because I haven't read the other volumes. This is an arc that was not included in the anime at all, so this is my first time reading it. And as much as I love the series, I really need this extra information, this extra arc, because I love these characters and I finally get to know where they came from and what their deal is. The next prompt is to read a book starting with the letter S for Slytherin. I read The Stainless Steel Rat Once You. I have been meaning to read this book for absolutely forever. The Stainless Steel Rat book 1 was I think the first book I reviewed on BookTube. It has been 2 years since that, and I'm finally getting around to reading. Is this book 3? Maybe book 4? I can't actually keep track. So there's 2 different ways of judging where these books lie. There's chronological order, from old to young, you're watching the Stainless Steel Rat grow old, or you have publication order, which is the order I'm reading in, because that's the order people learned it in. So I liked this book. It is a very old sci-fi book. I'm pretty sure this book was published in 1980, so it is old. It is has a lot of those really old sci-fi books. This book was originally only $2. You see the price on the spine. It's one of those types of books. It's not even 200 pages. This is the story of the Stainless Steel Rat Slippery Jim as he has to go into space and stop an intergalactic war. He does that a lot. Slippery Jim, the whole point of the Stainless Steel Rat series is that this universe has basically eradicated crime, and those who still commit crime are recruited by the Corp, who are a very elite criminals who work for the government to stop other criminals because they understand how the criminal mind works. The Slippery Jim, the Stainless Steel Rat, was once a criminal. He was then brought into the Corps. He saved the galaxy, saved the planets, got a wife, had a couple kids, time traveled and interdimensional traveled and all this amazing stuff. He is set up to be this glorious and wonderful guy. It's very 1980s, perfect man kind of idea. I don't really like how women are portrayed in this, but again, it's very much a product of its time. There is a small section in this book where they talk about how women are treated on another planet that is disconnected from the human, galaxy sort of government idea, and how they treat women, and it's not good. And he actually has to take a step back, and he realizes he feels bad for being a ladies' man. And it kind of takes a second to reflect on that, but then immediately throws it out the window the next chapter later. This is a very short book, and it's a lot of compact in here because they have to stop an intergalactic war, but there's also the subplot with the Grey Men, who is a species of humans that are set up in a previous book that are kind of meant to be the ultimate enemy. It's trying to make amends with them, but also figuring out their backstory while also trying to stop a war. All under 200 pages. It's a lot to go in here. And it takes a break from the war in the middle of the book to go deal with the Grey Men. And I didn't like how you just kind of forgot about the main plot for such a long portion of the book. But it does end up it's important to the ending of the story, which the thing about this book is they're always too short, and I never liked the product of its time excuse, you shouldn't, portray women, all women as that. Seriously, at least have one epic one, which kind of Angelina is kind of that epic one, but still, I want to give this book 3 stars, but also at the same time, I'm is it 4 stars? Because I really enjoyed it, but there's a lot of flaws, and the flaws are all in the writing style. So if you are very against the 1980s ideas, don't at all pick up this series. But if you want to read classic sci-fi, I think this is a very good example of what it was, and it was really enjoyable. So I don't really know. It's a quick read. You can find the audiobook on YouTube, and it's 5 hours long. Listen to it on 2-speed. Just do that. The next prompt was to read a book that you've been meaning to read for a while, or you promised someone else that you would read a while back, and you still haven't gotten around to it. That is On Writing and World Building, Volume 1. So I started reading this book November 1st, and I read 20 pages of it, and I put it down, and I didn't pick up again. Yep. So I finally sat down and read it all. This is a collection of basically video essays. This is written by the YouTuber Dear Future Me, Hello Future Me. I'll leave his videos linked down below. He's a great YouTuber. He does amazing video essays on the construction of world building and deep analysis of cartoons, especially Avatar: The Last Airbender, because it's amazing. It's just a lot of that, and it's understanding how people who are really successful do it and how to bring that into your own writing, and it's just amazing and wonderful, and I would recommend watching his videos because you get a lot more out of it, but you can cite this in a college essay, which is why I bought the book, because I'm in college. And a lot of professors still you can't cite YouTube videos. I'm now it's in print. I can do that. And the last prompt of the Magical Readathon that I got was to read a book with a sword on the cover. And I picked Reflection, a twisted tale about Mulan. And the whole prompt of this is, what if Mulan had to go into the underworld? This book cuts right to the chase, just as all Twisted Tale books do, where it doesn't even bother telling you the rest of the movie. It starts right at the point where they're changing the plot. Instead of Mulan being struck down after she causes the avalanche on the mountain, it's General Shang, and he kind of ends up getting almost dead. He's dying, and Mulan decides that she's going to save him no matter what, and she has a chance to go into Dayu, which is the Chinese version of like purgatory / the underworld. You're not supposed to stay there for long, but all recently dead have to pass through there. She has to stop King Yama, which is the guy who runs the afterlife, from completely killing Captain Shang, and she has to do this all the while pretending she's still Ping. She's not Mulan. And she runs into her ancestors there, and they're like, your dad didn't have a son, and she has to keep the secret, and like, no matter what, Shang cannot realize that Mulan is a girl, and she has to go through all these trials and all this, like, epic coolness. She has to fight off the ghosts and spirits and demons, all the while making sure that Shang doesn't completely die. Like, he's wandering next to her as a spirit, he can't touch anything, and she's just like, we gotta get out of here, because you have a war to lead. This is the only Twisted Tale book I've read so far that actually made me enjoy the book. So far, they've all been like, they're cool, they're nice concepts, but they really do read like fan fiction. This one read like an actual book, like an actual novel. I enjoyed it, I felt attached to the characters, I wanted to know what happened. I think it's just such a cool concept, and I love the way they interpreted the mythology and just everything. I'm very well versed in Japanese mythology. Chinese mythology is a little unknown to me because it's like somewhere but not. And I just think this book explained it so well while still feeling not like an info dump. It was just 4 stars, not amazing, but I really did enjoy this book. So those were all the prompts for the Winter Magical Readathon. Now on to all the other books I read this month. First of which was a DNF, and that is Midsummer Mayhem. This is a middle grade story that's kind of Shakespearean inspired. It is about a young girl from a large Indian family who, it's like she just wants to be a baker. That's all she wants to do with her life is to bake food. A new bakery opens up in town, and there's a competition held there to see who can be the best baker. This book is heavily inspired by Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream, so it's a lot of like fae and trickery, and I really didn't get this far in the book. Like, I don't really get how much the Shakespeare was brought into the book because I DNF'd it like really quickly. Like, I was not enjoying the book at all. I was not enjoying how they were bringing in Shakespeare. I was not like, I didn't like the characters. I didn't like the family dynamic. I didn't like it. So I stopped reading it. The next book is a book I've been meaning to pick up forever, and I finally got it at the airport and read it on the flight home, and that is The Little Prince. I was in this play. Like, this was my final in high school, was to perform this play with like half of my class and the other half did a different play. But I was absolutely in love with this show, and I knew it was a book, and I saw the Netflix movie. The Netflix movie took it in its own direction, not even like related to the book or the play at all. But I really needed to read the original book. Like, I finally got it, I finally did it. It was such a huge part of that year of my life because I played so many characters in this show. There's a lot of minor characters as the little prince travels through space. This is, I wouldn't say it's a sci-fi book. It is a middle grade book. Our main character, well, our prospective character is this pilot who crash lands in the desert. And as well, this pilot is trying to fix his plane that he ends up meeting a young boy who claims he's from a star. And the boy tells the pilot of his journeys through space, why he left his home planet and why he came to Earth. This is a very wonderful and magical book. It is all about like these tiny planets where they're only big enough for one person to live on. He meets the lamplighter, he meets the accountant, he meets the king. All these different planets are only inhabited by one person, and then he stumbles upon Earth, which he ends up in the middle of the desert, and the only person he can find is this pilot, and the pilot's like, Earth has so many people on it. And you see this backstory, but you also see the little prince become more and more depressed because on his little planet, he left a single rose, the only rose that grew on his planet. And this rose was not nice to the prince. And he left her to go travel one day to go and find himself. And the more time he spends on Earth and the more time he remembers his planets that he visits, the more he misses his rose. Can I talk about the ending? It has a trigger warning. So the trigger warning is all about the ending. So if you don't, spoilers. But this book does have a suicide like trigger warning. Like, I was aware of that when I bought the book. I was aware of that when I was going through the play. But it hurt. Like, I knew the ending to this book and it still hurt. I really enjoyed this book, but you have to be aware this will make you suffer. And it's a very short book. It has a lot of illustrations in it, so there's not even that much writing, but you can attach to the characters super fast. It's super adorable and super heartbreaking. The next book I read was a graphic novel, and that is Rolled a 1. This is a D&D comic book. It is a girl who decides she wants to play Dungeons and Dragons, and she's not that good at it, but she enjoys her friends she meets. She enjoys the people that she gets to hang out with. It's all about their adventures as they make friendships through the role-playing game. I really want to get into Dungeons and Dragons. I played a couple sessions, but I wasn't a big fan of my campaign. I wasn't a big fan of the other players or the DM. I just need to find a better group of people to hang out with, and so I'm still really attached to the game. So I read the book. Again, I don't give ratings to comic books because they're not complete stories, but I mean, it was enjoyable. So those are all the books I read in the month of December. What did you guys think? Do you have any opinions? Are you going to argue with me on Trials of Apollo? Because you were welcome to. A lot of people have. If you want to start that conversation, please leave that down in the comment section down below. And while you're there, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And as always, good night, good evening, and good morning, everybody.